Countdown U. My name's Ryan Sullivan. His name hasn't changed. It's still Andrew Wadden. Oh, baby, we've got some good bowl games for you. But we only have 3. And there's 2 of us, meaning that there's 1 extra pack up for grabs.
Yeah, because every week we go back and forth, right? And this week it's going to be unbalanced, so who's going to get the most camera time?
Should we rock, paper, scissors?
Rock, paper, scissors?
I'm down.
All right, let's do it. Ready? Ryan, the always predictable rock. Looks like it's me that gets the most camera time this week. Like Ryan being upset with his loss at paper, rock, scissors, the Montreal Carabins were looking to pull off an upset of their own in the Dunsmore Cup versus the mighty Laval Rouge et Or. But this wasn't going to be as easy as outwitting someone like Ryan. Laval has won 11 straight Dunsmore Cups, and we're riding a home winning streak that was over a decade long. However, the last time these 2 teams met, just a few weeks ago, it was the Bleu and Blanc who came out victorious. Could Montreal end Laval's Dunsmore dominance and pull off one of the biggest upsets in CIS history? Let's head to Peps and find out.
So we head to Peps for this clash of the Titans. The Red Machine with their big flag were ready for a battle, and that they would get. The home side bringing the physicality early in this one. Mikhail Davidson taking a lick, while Gabriel Cousineau was also finding it hard to find space from the swarming Laval D. 3-0 MTL after 1. In the second, RSEQ MVP and Rookie of the Year Hugo Richard goes for a run from his own 20, but he coughs up the leather. Anthony Cody recovers it. They would get it down to the Laval 2. On 3rd and goal, they elect to go for it. Cousineau to Regis Subasso. No, sir. Vincent Chabot with a fine defensive effort breaks it up. That's how you do it, kids. And the Montreal lead remains just 3. Still in the second, Cousineau in scramble mode hits Davidson, who climbs the ladder to make the grab. That leads to this 3-banger, and the Bleu and Blanc take a 6-0 lead into halftime. 3rd Q, Richard gets his squad on the march, fires this one deep to Julian Bailey. JB with a stellar grab, and he's jacked up about it too. As is Richard, who gives a little fist pump. That leads to this 24-yarder from Boris Bidet, and finally the Red Machine are on the board. B Squared tells the boys, allons-y! And Richard obliges, dying seconds of the quarter. On play action, the rookie slinger goes deep. Tyrone Pierre makes the grab. That's a 48-yard pickup. Pierre says, get out of my way, I want to do my happy dance. That didn't look very well rehearsed. Laval could only muster a 3-pointer out of it though. Game tied now at 6s. 4th Q, the Carabins would add another field goal to take a 3-point lead. Under 2 minutes to go, Sean Thomas Erlington tries to go up the gut, but he runs into a black wall. The pigskin hits the turf. Chabot pounces on it. Huge turnover for the Red Machine. Richard would then look to Pierre once again. That's a 23-yard gain, putting Laval into field goal range. So Bidet steps up and nails another one, and we're locked at 9s, heading to the OT zone. So Montreal gets the first shot in the extra session, and they get it into field goal range. Louis-Philippe Simoneau splits the uprights. MTL up by 3. Laval's turn now on 2nd and 8. Richard gets blitzed by the Carabins D, which leaves it up to Bidet to hit this 47-yarder to keep the game alive, but it's wide right. The mighty Rouge et Or's 70-game winning streak at home is gonzo. Montreal finally slays the Dragon, winning the Dunsmore Cup for the first time in school history. As I mentioned off the top of the show, a few significant streaks have now come to an end for the Rouge et Or. Of course, that 70-game winning streak is now over. Their 11-year run of Dunsmore titles, yep, that's over too. The last time the Red and Gold lost a playoff game to a Quebec school, 2002, when they lost 29-21 to Concordia in the Dunsmore semis. Montreal earns its first major championship and now will play host to the winner of the Canada West in the UTEC Bowl.
The Manitoba Bisons were the only team actually, legally, and without an asterisk able to beat the Calgary Dinos in 2014. It was a 50-31 win at Investors in Winnipeg, and it came on the final week of the regular season. Impressive? Yes. However, aside from last week's playoff win in Saskatchewan, the Herd has not been able to eke out a win on the road yet this year. Impressive? Not so much. Now that the stage is set, here is your 2014 Hardy Cup.
Calgary hosting Manitoba. A very chilly Hardy Cup, not very windy though, unless you're standing behind this guy, Mercer Timmis, on the very first play of the game.
The ball goes to Mercer Timmis, who blasts through a hole and gets across midfield. He is on his horse across the 30, 20, 10, touchdown, Calgary Dinos.
81 yards to the house. It's 7-0 Calgary in the first minute of the ball game. After a 6-play drive went nowhere, Manitoba punts. Then on the second play of the next Calgary drive,
Buckley looking to the air, throwing, and it's intercepted. And taken back to the house by Jonathan Jones with his second interception of the year. And Manitoba, we knew that they had to produce points off of turnovers. And there is 6 to the house right there by Jonathan Jones.
feel the thunder that is James Von Mullen III. Tie ball game just a few minutes in. Next Manitoba possession, and it's Keenan LaFrance from 40 yards out. He gets the butter churning, makes a few guys miss, takes a lick. That's a Manitoba touchdown, and they lead 14-7 after 1Q. In the second, though, the Twitter phenom himself, Rashawn Simonized, the secret weapon with a 42-yard hookup with Andrew Buckley. That is a major, and Calgary knots it right back up at 14. A gap on the Calgary special teams, though. The ball pops out on the punt return. Manitoba recovers on the 10. It would result in a Ryan Jones field goal. That's his first field goal against the Dinos all year. The Bisons are in front by 3. But before the end of the half, Buckley throws some airmail to Tyler Fong. He takes it back for a nice chunk of change, and it would lead to this. Zach Riegert from 7 yards out, no problem. Manitoba leads by 10 at the break. U2 at the Superdome in 2001 move over for perhaps the greatest halftime show in football history. Let's listen in.
You can feel the tension in the air. Wow.
Oh, I can feel it. Best part of this halftime show, guess who won the $5,000?
Just tell us who your brother is, because he's kind of a big deal to us.
Noah Picton, quarterback for the Rams.
That Picton family is slowly taking over the Canada West. Back to the game, Ryan Jones splits the pipe. This makes it 27-15 Bisons. Calgary would have their chances, but nothing doing. Cool Modobi and the boys celebrate. 27-15 is how this one ends. The Manitoba Bisons win the 2014 Hardy Cup. Prior to the game, the Canada West hardware was handed out. Andrew Buckley wins conference MVP. UBC's Marcus Davis took home the conference Rookie of the Year nod. UBC's Donovan Dale named Outstanding Lineman. Saskatchewan's Mark Ingram won the Best Defensive Player honors, while Huskies head coach Brian Tauris won Conference Coach of the Year. Up next for the Manitoba Bisons, the Montreal Caravan in Montreal this weekend for the UTech Bowl. The winner of that game, of course, heads on to the 50th Vanier Cup.
The 107th Yates Cup featured 2 of the CIS's best teams. McMaster
came into the game ranked as the number 3 team in the nation,
while Guelph came in as the 5th ranked team.
Both of these teams on paper very equal to one another.
With the oldest existing trophy in football history up for grabs.
Whose game would it be getting etched on the next Dr. HB Yates Cup?
Let's just get to the highlights.
All right, enough fooling around. Let's get to Ronnie J. Mac looking for a 3rd Yates in the last 5 years. Jazz Lindsay came into this one with a banged up shoulder, and it showed. Here he gets picked by Joey Capito, and here he gets plucked by Alan Dix. Lindsay would throw 3 picks and get yanked early for the rookie James Roberts, but Roberts would be overly generous of his own. He gets picked by Mike Kashik, who gives the rook the stiffy. Wait a second, that didn't really come out right. Nonetheless, it's a pick 6, and Mac has the lead. Up a 3 spot in the 4th. Marshall Ferguson goes over the middle to Josh Vanderweerd. Outstanding grab. That leads to this 3-banger. Less than 2 minutes to go. Roberts gets turfed by Mark Mackey. All that's left to do is this. Steph Potasic gets the Gatorade shower. Mac takes it 20-15. They are the Yates Cup champs once again. Capito was named the game's MVP after picking up 2 INTs. The 5th-year senior now has an incredible 14 picks in 14 career playoff games. Since the new millennium, Mac has won 7 Yates Cup championships. They head now to the Mitchell Bowl for a home date versus Mount A.
Whoo, some fantastic games, more to come this weekend.
Yeah, but, you know, you did kind of hawk in on my camera time there in the Yates Cup. I mean, I rightfully deserved it when I beat you in paper, rock, scissors because, as I know, you always go to rock. It's your go-to. You lose every single time. Then you got to pop up, ruin the whole... You know what? This whole thing is just falling apart. Throw it a break. Get us out of here.
Are you done?
I'm done.
You done? Okay.
I'm done.
Jim, get us going with some Vanier Cups.
Here's where you can catch CIS action on your television this weekend. Here's your 2014 Conference Major Award winners. And here's your 2014 CIS Major Award nominees.
The 1992 Vanier Cup featured the St. Mary's Huskies and the Queen's Golden Gales, and one of these teams would be the first to register a shutout in the national championship.
Vanier 92 between the Queen's Golden Gales and the St. Mary's Huskies. St. Mary's led by the legendary Larry Utek. This would be the last Vanier that Utek would coach in. This game, all Queens. First score belongs to them, Brad Elberg running it in. Queens led by quarterback Tim Pendergast, and he absolutely heaves this ball. Brian Alford behind the D comes down with it. 78 yards later, it's a score. Brad Elberg was the offense today. He proves it on this sweep. Cuts up, 28-yard run. Huskies don't have a chance. Touchdown. Elberg's day still not done. You thought that first one was nice? Check this one out. Cuts up, then cuts against the grain. Elberg, a man possessed, running rampant on the Huskies. Sets a record with 3 rushing touchdowns. What else to say? Well, the Queen's defense was also on fire. This game, still the only shutout in Vanier Cup history. Queens dominates to a 31-0 win. Brad Elberg wins MVP, of course, and Doug Hargreaves gets his second Vanier. Fun fact, Queens has won a Vanier Cup in every decade the championship's been played in.
Hey, welcome back to Krown Countdown U. It's time for the roundtable portion. We welcome in on the far side Jim Mullen, Gord Randall in the middle as always, and live from Toronto, Sportsnet's own Justin Dunk. Justin, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure, guys. Glad to be with you.
All right, let's go around the big games from this past weekend. Some upsets on the board. We're going to start things out with Laval losing to Montreal on the Dunsmore. And Jim, we're starting with you.
First of all, I was very impressed by the Laval fans, first of all, even though that was at the end of the game. They gave the Carabins a standing ovation as they came off the field after that overtime win. The other thing that I was impressed with was the front seven of the Montreal Carabins, especially led by Byron Archambault with his 8.5 tackles and his 2 sacks and his 2 tackles for loss. You know, these two teams, when you take a look at them in terms of what they can bring in the trenches, is absolutely fearsome. Both of them have produced 29 sacks on the season.
Gord, your thoughts on Quebec?
Well, you're going to see a bit of a theme in my analysis of all 3 of these games this weekend, but the losing team in this affair, the Laval Rouge or had some trouble running the ball. When your quarterback, Hugo Richard, is your leading rusher on the day, that's not a formula for success when you're Laval. And the fearsome twosome of Barassa and Boutin, who've been really carrying that rushing attack all year, ran for a meager 27 yards in this affair. Great job by the vaunted Montreal defense to shut them down. Jim already talked about the front 7. And the pass rush as well. Got a lot of pressure on Richard, forced him to throw, I think it was 3 interceptions on the day. He was off his game, but that was because we saw pressure that we rarely see against the Laval front. In fact, I would go out on a limb and say that it's pressure that we haven't seen since at least the 2011 Vanier Cup, maybe the 2009 Mitchell Bowl.
Yeah, I got to go with Jim here. That front 7 was dominant for Montreal. Matthew Girard, the Ticats draft pick, has been nearly unblockable for the Carabins. He wreaked havoc against Laval, and it's not easy to shut down that Rouge or run game. A lot of teams go in there and they make that their #1 task, but Montreal actually got it done, and got it done in Pep Stadium, which is even tougher. So kudos to that Montreal defense and Matthew Girard leading the way up front.
The Hardy Cup, Manitoba winning 27-15, a phenomenal game. Talking about the herd, let's go to Gord Randall.
Sure. Well, I'm going to start talking about the Calgary Dinos first here. And we'll talk about Manitoba a little bit more as we preview this week's upcoming games. But on the Calgary side, on the losing sidelines, which is rare to say about the Calgary Dinos, again, you gotta ask some questions about their rushing attack. Mercer Timmis, on his first touch in this game, took the ball 81 yards to the house for a touchdown. He saw a grand total of 12 carries in this game, which begs the question, is Mercer Timmis healthy? And you go to a pass-heavy offense, get away from the run game, and then that puts a lot of pressure on Andrew Buckley. And despite how virtuoso Andrew Buckley has been in the better part of the last 2 seasons, he's still a younger guy, and that's a lot of pressure to throw on him, especially the way the Manitoba secondary has been playing lately. Which brings me to my next point, is that Manitoba secondary has really stepped up over the last couple of weeks. Veteran secondary, they've become one of the best ball hawking units in the country, and they featured 10 takeaways as a team in this one, including, I think it was 6 interceptions.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned Mercer Timmis. He was on a bit of a run count for the Calgary Dinos over his last couple of games. He had to miss a game. He was kept down to 15 touches in the final regular season game. He was limited against the Regina Rams. And after cranking off that 181-yard run on the very first play of the game, I think a lot of people out there were saying, oh no, not again, because we've seen this from the Calgary Dinos before, especially with one big play. I overheard what their coaching staff was talking about going after Mitchell Harrison, the outside linebacker. They did on the first play, but they never victimized him again. They also talked a little bit about Mercer Timmis to me, about what his health status was before the game. They said he was about 80%, which tells me if they're saying this before the game, he was probably down to about 70 or 65%. We didn't see 100% out of this guy, and that's probably why they tried to run him a lot early in the game and then went away from him. Nobody called 10-0 in terms of turnovers in this game. Nobody could see that coming, especially in terms of interceptions and fumbles totaling 7. Although the Manitoba Bisons are a team who were +5 against the Calgary Dinos this year. And Blake Nill admitted it after the game that the Manitoba Bisons were a better team than the Calgary Dinos, simply because they dominated them in the 3 games that they played. And as a matter of fact, if you go back to that first game that they lost by 1 point, if it wasn't for 3 bobbled snaps on extra points and field goals, Manitoba would have won that 1-point game.
All right, Justin, these guys stole the Hardy spotlight, but when it comes to the Yates Cup, you were on the broadcast team out there in Hamilton. What are your thoughts?
Yes, sir. It was a bit of an ugly game, and I kind of thought it would be going in there. It ended 20-15, bit of a defensive struggle, a lot of picks thrown, and the question was going in for Guelph, Jazz Lindsay and the health of his throwing shoulder. And he did not look good in the first quarter. He threw 3 picks and just never had any zip on the ball, and it might have been a little bit of a mistake to leave Jazz in as long as they did. They might not have wanted to start James Roberts, the freshman who looked good against Western in the semis, but I think they left Jazz in too long. They should have gone to James earlier, if not possibly started him, because Jazz just had no pace behind the ball.
I will say that I don't want to send too much criticism to Stu Lang and his coaching staff on the decision to play Jazz Lindsay. When you have a senior leader at quarterback, no matter how hurt he is, if he tells you he wants to play, it's a very, very difficult decision to tell him not to. And this one obviously did not go well. I mean, the guy finishes 1 for 6, throws 3 interceptions. He was awful, and a couple of those interceptions were purely due to the fact that his arm was clearly not working properly. But, I mean, you go back again to 09, my favorite season to reference, but you go back to 09 in that Yates Cup, Michael Faulds walks onto that field with one knee. His other knee was in complete tatters, and he gutted it out and put together what was a magical performance. That looks great in hindsight, but it's essentially the same decision.
That I thought Farquharson was going to touch it 20, 25, or 30 times again for Guelph, and that would have been a good thing to allow them to control the game, and especially going up against a veteran defensive backcourt. Joey Capito and Steven Ventresca, time and time again, have made big-time playoff interceptions, and Joey Capito did it again in the Yates Cup. He had 2, one that snuffed out points in the end zone early in that ball game that could have given Guelph a wave of momentum. But Guelph, you're right, Gord, they should have stuck with Farquharson a little more, especially after he ripped off that 41-yarder in the first quarter. That was a beast of a run to get to the outside, had a nice stiff arm, and he finished it off. I thought they were going to keep rolling from there with Farquharson, but they didn't, and I think it cost them the game.
All right, let's move forward to the action coming up this weekend. We'll start things out with the UTEC, Manitoba out of the Canada West, Montreal to the RSEQ. Jim, let's go to you. Your thoughts?
Well, I think if Manitoba can be a +2, they can win this game in terms of the turnover ratio. I think if they can block a punt, they can win this game. I think they will be very challenged to do so. I think working the A-gap as they have with Alex Christie in terms of him coming through the middle, he blocked 4 punts this year, is going to be a major challenge against the blocking scheme that the Montreal Carabins have. I think this is going to be decided in the trenches. I think they are going to miss Evan Gill, even though Kent Hicks has been absolutely outstanding in a yeoman's effort only in his second year. But I think it's going to be a major challenge for Manitoba. But if, like they did in the Canada West final, get that early turnover, turn it into 7, do that quick pick 6, then they can start establishing their rhythm, because let's face it, the Montreal Carabins could not find the end zone against the Laval Rouge et Or.
Jim, I think you hit the nail on the head there, that this Manitoba team is an opportunistic bunch, particularly on defense. They capitalize on the turnovers and the big plays, and that's what we've seen. They've been a turnover factory the last 3-4 weeks. For the Montreal Carabins, they need to keep the game close. They need to keep this a game where they can lean on the run and where they can dink and dunk underneath, because the scheme that this Manitoba team runs in the back 6 allows for some of that underneath stuff. It's designed to take away the big play and has some ball hawks taking away those mid to long range throws. But if you can get yourself in second and short situations consistently, you can dink and dunk your way down the field on this Manitoba team. So that is the key for the Carabins, is to keep the game close, hopefully get ahead early. Don't you dare fall behind, and let your big boys in the trenches take this game over. Not to downplay what Manitoba does have in the trenches, because they are very good on both fronts, but I think that Montreal does have an edge there.
And before we throw it over to Justin, Gabby Cousineau put the ball up 38 times against Laval. Did not produce a touchdown. I know they were down 3rd and 1.5 and decided to go for it with goal to go and didn't convert. They did move the ball. I think Gabby Cousineau, if he can get into his game and get into his rhythm, might be able to score early and score often for Montreal. This is a really hard game to handicap.
Justin, out to you.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Jim. But Cousineau also didn't throw an interception against Laval, threw for over 300 yards. That's not easy to do. So I'm curious to see if they can get rolling on offense. But for me, this comes down to a couple areas. First, can Manitoba block Matthew Girard? He's such a force on the defensive line. Do they trap him, maybe screen him a little bit to kind of use his aggressiveness against him? And conversely, can Nick Dembski and Keenan LaFrance come up with some big plays? We saw LaFrance do it in the Hardy Cup, but Nick Dembski was nowhere to be found, and scouts are going to be at this game, and they're going to want this film to see if Dembski has a legit game when the lights are the brightest in the CIS against one of the best defenses across the country.
Actually, I think that's a plus that Nick Dembski was shut down to 1 reception against Calgary, because it shows that the Manitoba Bisons can find a number of different ways to win a football game, especially against a top-ranked team like the Calgary Dinos last week.
Yeah, it's going to be a total air attack. I mean, we've seen just how instrumental Jordan Yates is to that offense, and Gabriel Cousineau in Montreal. Let's move things over to the Mitchell Mount A McMaster. We're going to start things out with you, Justin. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's the game I'm covering. I'll be working the sidelines for Sportsnet. Everyone around the country that you talk to, you know, they're down on the AUS. They don't think the Mounties have a chance. But I think they have more of a chance than some people might think. I'm not calling an upset, but I think they could be in this ball game. Chris Reed had a solid freshman season for them at running back, 2nd in the country in rushing. Their defense was strong. Well, they didn't really play a top-tier offense on their schedule. Mac is going to test them. They have Pizzetta, Wayne Moore, a nice 2-headed running back combo, and the Vander twins, Vander Voort and Vander Weird, are a solid pair at receiver, and Marshall Ferguson, the 5th-year kid at quarterback, he's got to come out, I think, with a better game than he had last week in the Yates.
Yeah, but Marshall Ferguson can't force the ball downfield, because the Mount Allison Mounties know how to create turnovers. And if they start creating turnovers, it could be a world of hurt for Marshall Ferguson.
Quick hits here, 30 seconds or less. things that are maybe getting under your skin, or maybe things you just want to see get more of a spotlight throughout the CIS.
Kelly Jeffrey, he's the head coach of the Mount A Mounties. You know, there's been a lot of talk about open coaching positions out there right across the board. If this guy's not the #1 competitor at UBC, at Regina, at McGill, I don't know what's wrong with the CIS right now.
Gord.
Steve Simmons, professional blowhard and part-time journalist. He's based out of Toronto. He likes to think that his opinions are pretty objective facts, and his objective fact of the weekend was after he decided to check out what had to be his first CIS game of the year, he decided to go out on Twitter and sound the horn to tell everybody that it was not a good quality game in his opinion. The exact quote is 2 words on the McMaster Guelph OUA final: terrible football. Listen, Steve, don't come dropping in, watching 1 game a year, and pretending that you know everything that's going on in the CIS. You should be an advocate for this game. And the network that you work on a regular basis showed 2 Canadian football games at the professional level that were probably lower quality football games than that OUA final. So don't be a drive-by journalist. Stick to what you think you know, which is hockey, and stick out of our game.
Amen, brother. Testify.
Now, before we get to Gord's pick of the week, let's throw things out to Justin. Take us home on the quick hits.
Well, I'll try to make these quick, unlike Gord. I got to get that shot in there.
He's a Queens guy. He's verbose.
You know, we're talking about coaching positions that are open. Kevin McNeil at Guelph deserves some consideration. He's done a great job with that defense, and I'm not just saying it because I'm a Guelph alum. He's done a great job there. He's the kind of recruiter that you need to go out and get the talent to turn programs around. I think Kevin McNeil deserves some love.
This is Gord's pick of the week. Take the spotlight.
Before I jump into that, one quick coaching candidate. This is admittedly a homer pick, but one quick coaching candidate who is not being mentioned. Pat Tracy, the special teams coordinator with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. If anybody can lure him out of his position there under a friend in Mike O'Shea, he would be an excellent head coaching candidate. Now, for my pick of the week, I almost had to wear the Western helmet of shame because I went 0 for 3 last week, but I decided to save myself that embarrassment. I've got the McMaster Marauders in the in the Mitchell Bowl. But in the UTEC Bowl, my game of the week, very, very tough game to call, and I know I'm going to take some flack from this from a few people I know, but I'm going to go with the home field advantage and the Montreal Carabins this week. I think that they play a safe game close to the vest. They cut down on their mistakes, and they take it home using that home field advantage to move on to the Vanier Cup.
Look what I had to do, a 7 3/4 head, and I've got to put this on in spite of you.
Hey, you were the one running your mouth when I had to wear that 2 weeks ago.
You're the only man that can make a Bison's helmet look like a shot glass.
Oh,
Jim.
my
That's
goodness.
Fantastic.
We don't have an extra Guelph helmet for you there, do you?
Justin Dunk, thank you so much for joining us live from Toronto. Where are we going to find you this weekend?
I'll be on the sidelines of the Mitchell Bowl, guys. Be sure to tune in. Doubleheader on Sportsnet. Got to give it the plug. Started 12:30 with the UTEC, Manitoba, Montreal at 4 o'clock. We got Mount A at McMaster. Tune in.
Very exciting. Can't wait to see you, buddy. Best of luck. For Jim Mullen on the far side.
Oh, this hurts.
Sporting the gold thimble. For Gord in the middle, Andrew Wadden earlier in the show, I'm Ryan Sullivan. We'll catch you again next week. Enjoy the games this weekend.
Thanks for watching Krown Countdown U. Now, let's get out to the game.